is now the hair that this last strands that she has, and that comb that's coming out. And so Mensa drew that comb to remind her of what life used to be. And so now that comb has taken on a whole new meaning. It's no longer just a comb, right? And then I said, here's a foot, and it's a beautiful painting of a foot. And I said, hey, I come in the class, I want you to draw your feet. Get out of here. Here he goes again. Own foot, He can be more creative than that. And I said, now, I want to show you Mensa's foot. I showed him this painting. I said, now, I dare you to go throughout this whole school and find a painting in this whole school that is more powerful than this foot right here. I dare you. You can't. And I asked him, can you think you can find a painting? Because they're not like this. Because his foot is an amazing painting. And I said, now, the reason it's a beautiful painting is because it's Mensa's foot. He knows what it traveled, the scars on it, the callus and all those. He knows all that in the history and all that. And that's all in that painting. So now, so then I started to pull out the other books and I said, here, I want you to look at this. I said, now, there's no part in this painting that you can point up a 4x4 square that won't make you cry. I'm looking at the master's work. So my assignment to you is this, to stop you from becoming technicians. I want you to take a 4x4 piece of paper, it can be board or whatever it is, and I want you to pick something out, something that's precious to you, something that has some meaning, and I want you to do it 100 times. Right? I want you to do 100 paintings of this object, along with all the 5 assignments that you have to do, and all the classes you're doing, all that, and I want them done by the end of the semester. And if you don't make me cry, you fail my class. They looked at me and was like, are you serious? I'm not smiling. And they bitched. Oh, I mean, and one girl, she's walking out, and actually one kid actually went to tears. He went to tears, a guy. And he asked me, he said, I can't think of anything that I would want to paint like that. I said, what do you mean you can't think of anything? I said, what about something that is related to your mother or something? And that's when he went to tears. He said, I keep my mother. He said, you mean, I can't even think of what I can paint for my mother or anything. I don't have anything precious like that. I said, you can't think of something that she might have liked or. Then they went to tears, and the rest of the kids are looking at him, my students in class are looking at him, and now they're crying because I think I made them cry. and I said, no, wait, we're getting a little too deep here. I said, why? And he couldn't talk now because he's in that, So I said, I need to just take a moment, come outside with me. I said, so now tell me what's going on. He said, I'm sorry. I lost my mom. Early, and the only time I remember her is in a bed. She was bedridden from the whole time that I've known her. And so, the only thing I can think of that's precious to my mom is the bed. I can't paint the bed. And I'm sitting there now saying, I'm now, because you just touched me, because my mom had a massive stroke at 49, and she stayed in a bed for almost 30 years. And so I know I lost my mother after that massive stroke. She didn't recognize who we were. She said my mom didn't recognize her last time. And so, but I said, but what you're talking about is very powerful, And I said, so all I'm looking for is something maybe that there was your mother, like maybe a fruit or something that she might have liked. And he said, whoa, plums. My mother loved plums. I said, there it goes. I said, the mere fact that we just had this dialogue now, I will never look at a plum ever again without thinking about your mom. I said, so now I want you to go and do this plum. And now he go, wow. His plum painting, when he came in, those 100 plum paintings, will make you cry. I cried. And I'm crying.
Not to, as a society, American society, I don't know if this is around the world, to not feel, to not share those feelings in public, to not, so invoking it in our art, the difference between an artist who lets emotion come up in and of themselves and then is hoping to share that and create some kind of feeling in the audience versus a technician where it's get the job done, do it a certain way, don't do it.
Mediocrity is the order of the day.
Right.
Plain and simple. And caring has left our lexicon. It literally has. And that's why I think each kindness is so powerful. Because this is so I think we should have a. I wanted this rally to have a kindness month, not a kindness day, just a month of kindness that you every day you have to do something, and you have to, and it's a little pebble, and that pebble represents in it. It's a little pebble that goes that you hold, and I don't know how to use it right now, but something that is associated with the pebble and kindness. To get us to start thinking about that, to start thinking about at the bottom, at the end of the day, it really truly is about caring. And people change when they find that you care. Children do. And as I told before, when I talk to the teachers, I said when I go into work with young teachers or teachers who've been in the business too long, that at the top of the paper, I want you to write this. Kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. Plain and simple. You can go there and talk to the teacher to you blue. They don't care until they know that you care. And then once you start to share that, it becomes infectious. And then the world, the society starts to change. But for some reason, I don't know, I think caring started, I think it just starts, it trickles down from top down. Our high officials stop caring. And then it becomes this hopelessness and this apathy that's, kind of this is now so prevalent in our society. And it's, how do we kind of kickstart it again? And I think it's little small things that happen, that we start to do that. The situation that happened in Connecticut, Springfield, Connecticut, could have been avoided, and it's avoided because of, it could have been avoided because of caring. Plain and simple. And when I started to really analyze it, and I came up with this one night. I think I spent a lot of time in that pre-sleep, waking time where I do my really thinking, and something came to me about tribe. That once I think we come into this world looking for a tribe. And that tribe basically is based on people that get you, understand you, people of like mind, people that you can sit down with and break bread, and they just, it's a wonderful place to be in that place. And kids, especially when they reach, I don't know, it's more so when they're in puberty, where they ever more so need their tribe, and they're looking for it. And so, but our tribes have been narrowed so that in terms of the big picture, it's like, all right, there's a gang, and then that becomes your tribe, which is not a positive tribe at all, And then there's other movements that become the tribe. And it's really, so there's, for the lack of other tribes, you fall yourself in that one, which is really not your tribe. And then you find even in that tribe you don't fit, because it's not your tribe. And so then you find yourself being on the outside. And so it becomes a very bitter place when you're looking for your tribe and you can't find it. So you can't find, so what is my place then? I don't belong here. And so what's the answer? To leave it. And that's the bottom line. So that's their answer, becomes their answer. You find a tribe, you don't need to leave. You find a purpose. And that's I think what's happening today in our society, especially in education, is that we have not found, our students are leaving out. 7,000 students drop out of school daily in this country. 7,000 a day. That's crazy. What are we doing? And we're going the wrong damn direction. It's not like we're making it better. We're going in the wrong wrong direction. When he passed away, it was a wonderful film called, it's a documentary of James Baldwin's life, and it's called The Price of a Ticket. If you're not seen it, go watch it. It's a great, great documentary. And at the end, after he had passed, his brother was being interviewed and said, you know, your brother, James, what do you think he would have said about his legacy? He said, well, Jimmy talks about it all the time. He said, you know, when they actually, whenever at that point where they start sifting through the wreckage, you know, rushing away to try this, hopefully they uncover something that I left behind, something that somebody else can use. And hearing that is like, that's the whole point, to be able to create something that after it's all said and done, I'm gone, and I've left something behind that somebody else can use to further, you know, the society's further or progress. That's what my life is about, leaving something behind. Somebody else can use.
They're African American illustrators, and they get tired of being asked to solely do African American stories. And I think you combine a humanity story that isn't African American or white or this or that. Can you speak to that issue for some of your fellow illustrators, or how you've encountered it yourself?
Well, yeah. The issue is that there's the void. I mean, you have to think about that. You have to deal with that. That for so long, not just African American, Native American, Asian, Latino, so on and so forth. That void has been in this country for a long time. It's a big hole. That was. And it's a privilege to be able to be placed in a position to actually fill that void. So I look forward to being a part. I'm happy to be able to have books that I can actually start to create images that children of that particular culture can look at themselves and feel proud. And it's necessary. I tell teachers all the time, you know, now that our society is changing rapidly, you need, does your classroom have more than just the usual suspects? George Washington, Martin Luther King, Abe Lincoln. You know, does your classroom have, you know, really, like if you have Latino, you know, there's Clemente, you know, Native American. Who do you have up there that, you know, when that child comes through the door, they feel part of? They feel part of the room because they're looking.
Yeah.
They're coming in and looking and saying, do I belong here? I don't know anybody here. Those are not my heroes, not the ones that my parents talk about at home. Automatically. So then the books, they open the books, and the books are in the classroom, and we have that sharing, and they feel wonderful. And then it becomes a sharing of stories, and becomes a sharing of cultures, and then we start talking about food, and, you know, getting them to talk about music and dance and costume, and the reasons for this and the reasons, and it becomes a wonderful sharing, and the world becomes a wonderful place. But at the same time, I don't want to be pigeonholed to only to African American stories. There's a constant bickering that's going on about, like, I remember hearing Spike Lee and James Earl Jones starting this argument where Spike Lee was the mindset that you have to be of African American descent to actually do that work, you know, solely. And James Earl Jones said, I don't care, blue, purple, green, you know, as long as you've done the homework. You should be able to do that.
The color purple? There was a lot of discussion. I think Spike Lee talked about that.
Exactly. And I'm of the mindset of James Earl Jones, that if you've done your homework. Now, not to say that there is something to be said about the people, a person who actually does that work, you know, I mean, of that culture. Something comes in, it's subconscious though. There's a subconsciousness that goes into that work because you're of that ilk, of that culture. That does go in, because there's something that you know and recognize. Even if you do all the homework you want, but it's a subconscious in there. But not to say that not some great work has been done by somebody of not that culture. And I don't want to be limited myself. I mean, why would you limit me from being able to do work if I studied and explored and wanted to do that? But and the other thing is so stupid, because I'm African American doesn't mean I know the whole African American culture, which is silly. When I did a book on Little Cliffs and the Porch People, I had to go out to the Mississippi Delta. African American. They were. I could have been to Guatemala. I didn't know that culture more than I knew, Guatemala. It was that foreign to me. The colloquiums, everything was that different. I needed to go and study that people. They were African Americans in America. You still got to do your homework. It's a silly argument. Spike Lee, who is pregnant and not first time, and not knowing what that experience is all about, is looking to make the nest ready. And so she's flying all over Jerusalem looking to find that perfect thing for the nest. And she flies there, they're all over the place, and she ends up back on the wall. And she's there and something catches her eye from beneath the wall, something that flutters up from beneath the wall. She goes down to investigate it. And what it is, it's one of the prayers that is dislodged from the wall. She starts pulling these prayers out and building her nest on the bed of prayers. And so when I'm doing the prayer nest, it's going to be of all the different languages and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that. And it's going to come out in 9 different languages.
Who's that with?
It's going to be self-published.
Oh.